Okay. Alright, so, Poltergeist 2015. Well, I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. This movie's a mess. It's not the worst horror movie of recent times, because there... I can get out that way. There certainly are some contenders for truly terrible horror movies being made these days. See pretty much everything that was made last year, with the exception of the Oculus, the Mirror movie. Pretty much anything made under the banner of horror last year was terrible. So far, this has been a pretty good year, with It Follows and I don't know, I feel like there was one more, but It Follows is, by itself, capable of holding this year up to a slightly higher standard. Oh, Unfriended! Unfriended! I knew there was another one, and you know what? I actually really liked Unfriended. I went in with less than no expectations. I went in pretty much thinking I was gonna see just a gimmicky horror fest, and I was actually pleasantly surprised. So far, this had been a pretty decent year for one of my favorite genres of movie, horror. And it's one of my favorite genres because it really can run the gambit. It can really do a whole lot of things with one movie. And not just in terms of, like, lots of different characters and set pieces and things. Like, you can really have some fun with the emotional gambit, the emotional gauntlet of a horror movie. You can really take your audience on a wide ride. A good example is the original Poltergeist. My father calls one of his favorite movies because it made him laugh, it made him cry, and it scared the hell out of him. That's pretty cool. No copyright strikes. Many movies can really say they did all three of those things: laugh, cry, and scared the shit out of you. And the original Poltergeist did. And I'm just going to go ahead and also say this. I don't think that Poltergeist really needed to be updated. It's a very good movie that's actually aged quite well. I mean, not all the effects hold up, but for the most part, it does okay. Like, I've seen other horror classics age much worse than that one. And this movie, this remake or reboot or whatever the hell you want to call it, it just doesn't do enough with the concept. It doesn't tread enough new ground. It really is very okay with just kind of treading the waters of, well, retreads for its hour-and-a-half long runtime. And it really doesn't try anything new. It really doesn't... It's not interested in trying anything new. And that's unfortunate. It is from the same people that did the remake of The Evil Dead that came out 2 years ago? I can't remember exactly. But I actually liked that movie. I'm not the hugest Evil Dead fan. The first time I saw the original movie was in preparation for my viewing of this new one. But I liked the original, and I liked the remake. I thought it not... And, you know, that's the difference, actually, between The Evil Dead reboot, remake, whatever it is that this same group of people did, and this reboot, remake, whatever it is of Poltergeist is. The Evil Dead one did try some new things. It wasn't just retreading the old ground of the original movie. Now, there was a lot of that, but in addition to really doing the same thing over again, it took what it was and it made it bigger. Like, it really expanded upon the things that made the original work so well, and that's what made this new one work so well for me. Practical effects that are groundbreaking at the time, practical effects that even by today's standards are really good in the new one. And then, like, in the twist in the third act, how you're spending the entire movie being like, okay, so who's going to be the new Ash? And then it ends up, I mean, I'm not going to spoil it here in case you haven't seen it, but then it ends up being that person, and you're like, what the fuck? Not only is that blowing my mind as someone who doesn't know the original, that's blowing my mind as someone who does know the original. That's a really special thing. And this movie, it's, again, you know, it's not the worst. It's that kind of weird, Poltergeist 2015 is inoffensively terrible. But terrible really is kind of the right word to apply to it. It was it's a huge mess. The editing was not great, and there was obviously several rounds. It felt like, as I was watching it, this was like the upteenth round of edits for this movie. I think there's probably a very good chance that this movie was originally supposed to be 2 hours long, and they just cut it down to 90 minutes because reasons. But like one thing that really stuck out to me was there was this scene where these two characters are doing one thing in this one room and other characters are doing other things in another room, and they're communicating with each other, and the things that are happening in one room are affecting the other room. And then suddenly after we cut back to the room at one point where these two guys are in, and even though the last time we saw them they were just kind of chilling, holding on to this thing that's spoilers, but now suddenly one of them's on the ground and recovering from something, but we're not shown what it was that happened that caused him to get on the ground and need to be recovering from something. He goes from just standing around getting ready to do the thing he needs to do, and then suddenly it's like something bad happened. It's like there was a scare in the movie that they edited out because they wanted to cut the movie down to 90 minutes. And I understand why studios do that. 90 minutes is, I guess it's like statistically shown to be like the best runtime for movies. You get the most number of views in every day while still being able to keep a movie long enough to, you know, satisfy people to some extent. Man, I gotta be careful with those copyright strikes. But if you're editing the movie so much that we no longer get to see a certain scare, but the scare still has an impact on the plot and we can see that impact, but you've edited the scare itself out of the movie, you've edited too much. It's like you wouldn't kill a supporting character in an action movie, edit out the scene that they get killed in, but then have a scene in the movie still that is characters reacting to the fact that this character died. You wouldn't do that because people would be confused. And it's very confusing and it's very jarring watching the climax of this movie because these characters go from hanging out to, oh my god, something happened, and we don't get to see what happened. And I know I'm harping about this, but it's really a good testament to a lot of the things that are wrong with this movie. Like another thing, there's the scene where the family is calling in the paranormal investigators to help them understand what has happened to them, and there's this huge expositional scene, and they're talking about the things that are happening and what they're going to have to try and do in order to do what they need to do. I'm trying to avoid spoilers if possible. And then suddenly the dad goes in the kitchen and he pours himself a drink, and now suddenly this drink is a recreation of a scene from the original. And yes, you know, the scene that it's recreating from the original came out of nowhere. It's just the guy hanging out and, oh my god, my face is peeling. But, you know, there was setup. We were following that character for a minute, and we weren't suddenly and jarringly changing from one type of archetype or one type of scene to suddenly this with no setup. And it doesn't even, what it is in this movie, it doesn't make sense. I mean, I can't even talk about this movie coherently. It's just so weird and so jarring and so sloppily edited, and I mean, and the script really isn't great. I haven't read the script, but from what I saw from this obviously cut down several times through several vicious edits, it's just moving, like, okay, we gotta get to the next thing, we gotta get to the next thing, we gotta get to the next thing, we gotta get to the next thing. And they never sit and let anything marinate. We never really get a chance for anything to be built up. Like, there's this one scene where, like, there's this entity moving through the house, and the way we could track its movements are any light bulb that's near it illuminates when the thing is nearby it, and it's kind of an interesting concept because we don't get to see what's doing this, but we just see these lights flaring and dying. but they're happening so quickly, like, the effect of what we're seeing doesn't get to sink in. It's like, light, whoop, light, whoop, light. And I'm only very littly exaggerating that. The pacing was just not good. And pacing is really important in horror. And a lot of people making horror movies these days don't understand that. If you're just trying to rush to get to the next big scare, if you're just trying to cut through all the things that make us care about the characters, or cutting through the setup like a chainsaw through tissue paper, you're just not going to make an effective movie. What made Hitchcock's movies so effective wasn't that he's like, okay, and scare time, scare time, scare time, scare time. It was the pacing and the way that he took his time and the way that he really set everything up and really just foreshadowed and built and built. And so when it was time for the scary thing to happen, you're on the edge of your seat, not knowing what is going to happen. What this lady's going up the stairs, and while all these birds are attacking, what's going to happen? She hears a sound, and oh God, do not open that door, lady, do not open that door. Oh my God, why'd you open the door? There's nothing like that in this movie. Nothing. The scares, I mean, okay, so it's not fair to say that you can see a scare coming a mile away, but when you're relying so heavily on another movie, the movie that you're remaking, you need to find, I don't even know. I really don't. This movie is just an awkward thing of a couple interesting ideas. Like, there's this scene in The Other World that, couldn't have been in the original because we didn't have the technology at the time for it to happen. And we have the technology now, and it was very interesting. It was visually striking, and I don't think I'm going to forget the image anytime soon, but great. You made a haunting image for me to remember. Can you give me a character to give a shit about? Can you give me a coherent plot? Can you give me editing that's not just kind of make it up as you go? I just can't get over that. You cut out a major scare from your movie during the climax, but you leave in a reaction to that scare? Who signed off on that? Who edited that together and said, yep, that's good? Who quality checked that editor's work and decided, yeah, that's cool? Who are these people? Who did this? I mean, again, my shit ain't great. It stinks. At times. It does. I'm aware of that. But I'm also not working off a budget of, several dozens of millions of dollars with quality, incredibly talented actors at my disposal, and with all these cool tools and things, and all these months and months to make it. I have a week or 2 weeks at the most to get my videos out. So it's one thing when I have issues, it's another thing when a major Hollywood release that's being sold for $12.50 a ticket has these kinds of issues. How does that happen? How do you... I'm harping now, so I'm really gonna let this one go, because there's really just not much more to say. Don't go see this movie. This is my first immediate reaction where I'm legitimately going to say, don't go see this movie. Don't do it. If you want something scary, go check out the original Poltergeist. Not only is it epic, but it's somewhat historic in terms of filmmaking, and it's just a better movie. And there's so many better movies. Go find It Follows if you can. I think it's coming out on DVD soon if it's not already. You could probably go find Unfriended in some like $3 theater somewhere near you. Just go see... God, I'm having hiccups right now. Just go see those movies, or go watch some older movie. Go watch The Conjuring, for God's sake. Sinister 2 is coming out, and while I think that movie's going to be terrible, go watch Sinister. Go watch Insidious. Hell, go watch Insidious 2! Those are all much better movies than this. Just let this one go, and go check out Tomorrowland, which has been getting terrible reviews. I know I'll be seeing that in the next couple days. I'm going to see Pitch Perfect tomorrow, and hopefully that'll get me up out of this mood, because Poltergeist 2015, just take it easy, guys. Take it easy, guys.